All right, Joellen, let's talk about avoiding those common landscape mistakes. And I'm pretty sure I have a lot of mistakes in my landscape.
And I'm sure that I have done them over the years too, which is how, you're supposed to learn from your mistakes.
That's right, and you're going to teach us.
We're going to talk about some of them.
Okay.
Planting trees, shrubs, annuals, perennials, too deep.
I've been there. Okay.
This is a very common mistake that a lot of people make. What they don't understand is in a container, the soil level in the container should be the same soil level that is there when they plant it. So you really don't put dirt up over the top of the soil that is existing in the container. So you're going to plant up to it, because then when you mulch, you'll be mulching over the top of it, so it will get covered.
Okay.
But you really don't want to bury the top of the root balls or any of the containers that you're planting. Now, bald and burlap trees are probably the worst, because sometimes you cannot tell where the actual soil level is on those, because by the process of them making the root ball, they will pull up the soil sometimes over the top, and of course it's covered and you can't always see it. So just be aware of that. That's why I tend to plant them a little bit high. So when I open it up, the root ball, I can see where the soil level is, and most likely it is either equal or slightly above the existing soil level, and that's perfect.
Good.
So that's that one. Then, of course, correct watering. Oh my goodness.
Right.
We get a lot of questions we get here are because of somebody overwatering or underwatering, a particular plant. So you need to research your plants and find out what kind of environment that they like. And it's going to be different for every season of the year. There's sunlight's different, the temperature is different, and when you plant a plant, it's different. So it depends on how long ago you planted that plant. If you haven't planted it very long, it doesn't have roots in the existing soil, so it may need to be watered a little bit more than something that is already established.
Right.
So you just got to kind of have to pay attention, and the best way I can tell is to research what kind of plants you're planting, put them in the right place, and then monitor with your moisture meter, which is your hand.
Is this?
Yes. I mean, you stick your finger in the ground. Right. Don't just look at it and say, oh, it looks like it needs water. Put your hand in the ground. Is the soil moist? Okay. Does it really need to be watered? So that's how you do correct watering.
And I'll tell you something else with that too. I usually tell people to group plants by water requirements.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to put a drought tolerant plant, in the same position where you have, a plant that needs a lot of water.
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I agree. And that's part of the research.
Right, it's part of the research, right.
And then the second one is the right plant in the right place, which is exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah.
If you've got the right plants, you research them, you know the kind of water requirements they need, the environment that they need, the sun, the shade, whatever it is, then you can plant them in the correct place. The other thing is, this is mature size of the tree. The tree, the shrub, whatever you're planting, find out what the mature size of it is so that you don't crowd it. Because then if it's crowded, you're not going to get airflow, you're going to get diseases, and then maybe bugs popping up with them. So that all is a factor in where it's planted in the right place.
Makes sense.
Power lines. I have just watched somebody in a new plant a little whole row of trees, and if you look up, they're right under power lines. I mean, seriously?
What a mistake.
Could you not have planted them 10 or 20 feet, further back and gotten the same effect, but then they wouldn't be in the power lines.
Yeah, because you know what's going to happen when it starts to grow up into the power lines.
So just watch the power lines and the mature size of your trees. That's the important part about that. Pruning mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, I love to prune. One of my favorite horticulture practices is pruning.
You like pruning like that?
I love pruning. But some people prune at the wrong time of the year, and the biggest problem is the shrubs and trees that bloom.
Right, I would agree.
And the biggest way I can say the best rule is after it finishes blooming, prune it.
Prune it, okay.
That way you're more apt to not get into the time of year that it's trying to set blooms for the next year. But a lot of times people will cut off the blooms for next year, but prune it as soon as it finishes blooming, you won't have that problem.
We get that question a lot at the Extension office. When should I prune this? Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, like research your plants.
Research.
How about girdling? Oh my goodness. trees and branches. There's so many things that can girdle a tree. You know, if you put it too close to a fence, you know, if you've ever seen trees and plants growing into fences.
I have.
Even the plastic tags that identify the plants, the tree can't make them go away.
That's right.
They kind of include them in there, but that restricts the water and air movement around that, so you don't want that.
Okay.
And it's just not going to work very well.
Okay.
The other thing that girdles a tree is weed eating around it, or actually mowing and hitting the trunk of a tree. That can, you know, every time you hit, you have a callus on your finger from writing. You know, you get a callus on certain parts of your finger. That's what happens when you're weed eating around the trunk of a tree. You don't see it, but there's a callus there, and it's affecting the water flow and uptake of the tree. And essentially it girdles the tree.
All right. Wow. A weed eater blight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about staking trees too tightly?
Trees, which I've seen all around the landscape here.
You know, it's nice to have staked trees because, you know, I understand you don't want it to move and you don't want it to fall over because you've taken a lot of time, especially on large trees. And I agree, they should be staked if it's a large tree and they don't want it to blow over.
Okay.
But they shouldn't be taut. They should be loose. Okay. So that you want to see the tree in the wind be able to move just a little bit, because that's going to create, the tree is going to produce what they call reaction wood.
Okay, heard that.
And that will help the tree learn to stand up on its own. Cool. Because if you tie it tightly and don't let it move,
you restrict the movement.
It's never going to learn to have reaction wood to be able to stand up.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Scalping grass.
Scalping the grass.
Yes, I mean, everybody has that one place that, you know, they keep going, it looks a little brown. Well, I scalped that little section. That's okay. Well, just fix it. Either raise it or lower it, whatever you need to do, and then you won't have that scalped place anymore. Okay. And it's usually the level of the soil that's affecting that.
And it will brown out, so yeah, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another one common mistake. Knowing the difference between an annual and perennial. How many times do we get a question, is this an annual or is this a perennial? And, you know, the majority of plants end up being perennials because trees, shrubs, you know, all are perennials. They stay around all the time. And that's the difference between an annual and a perennial. An annual completes its entire life cycle in one growing season, and then it doesn't live anymore. Right. Except if in the tropics. Yeah. You know, when it gets to be warm outside, it doesn't freeze, and it's going to continue to live. But everywhere else, it will complete its season of living in 1 year, and then it will die. Perennials stay around year after year.
I like perennials. Okay.
Bulbs planting the right side up. I mean, you know, if you do make a mistake and plant one upside down, it will grow.
Okay, I always wondered that.
But it will take longer and take more energy to turn itself around because it will try to right itself. Okay. But it just watch, and usually
you can tell, right?
The point, and sometimes this is what people get confused with. All right. Sometimes bulbs are the stalk is starting to come out, not the roots, but the stalk. Gotcha. And they think that's a root.
Okay, I got you.
And so, you know, just try to look on the bottoms or around on the bulbs, and if you see a wider area that looks like there's small little holes in a circle around it, that usually is a key that it's going to be roots. Okay. So you put that side down and the other side up, but usually there's a point that, you know, there'll be some sheathing around the bulbs, and they'll come up to a little bit of a point, and that's the top to face up. Okay. The worst thing, now, everybody is guilty of this, myself included.
Include me in that as well.
Impulse buying. Not having the plan, not knowing what the plan is, just going out and say, oh, I really like this plant, and then they're going to come get it and plant it this is the problem. You know, you may not know a place to put it right away. So what do? You let it sit out.
Just sit, garage or outside.
Yeah, and then you forget to water it, or you water it too much. And if you're going to do a lot of impulse buying, I suggest to have an area that you would plant it in the ground. And so it'll be in the ground while you're trying to figure out where to put it.
All right. I like that though. I see if I can do that, but yeah, impulse buying.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
impulse
think we're all
buying.
guilty. If you're a plant
Everybody's
person,
guilty.
you're guilty of that one.
Definitely guilty of that, yes.
All right, appreciate that, Ms. Joellen. Good stuff. Avoiding those landscape mistakes. Let's see if we can get better with that next time.
Yeah,
All right.
myself included.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please click the subscribe button below.